What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Stochastic Best Ball channel. My name is Matt Savoca, and I'm here with my buddy Nick Lepre, and we are continuing our divisional breakdowns, introducing you all to the Stochastic Best Ball rankings. No better way to do this. Go through every fantasy relevant player in every team, and we're doing the AFC East today. Nick Lepre's here to break it down with me. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I just realized my lighting's a little bit off, so I look like I haven't been outside since I've been born. But at the end of the day, I'm still very excited to talk about this, as this is my favorite division because my favorite team plays in this division.
Nikki Vampire is here to talk about the sunniest team in Miami. No, you look fine, buddy. My name's Matt Savoca, by the way. Follow me at Draftaholic. Yeah, we've been going division by division. Today is the AFC East, which has gone through serious upheaval over the last half decade. Obviously, dominated by Tom Brady for so long, now dominated by Josh Allen and the Bills, but a lot of these other teams have retooled in recent years, including your Miami Dolphins, who have a brand new look. We start, though, with the lowest win total team, the New York Jets. Current win total sitting at 5.5 on the sports books right now. Robert Saleh hired in 2021, back again for another year. Mike LaFleur, brother of Matt LaFleur, hired in 2021 as Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator. So Breece Hall is the main fantasy relevant player, and honestly, his ADP has sunk since the spring. That surprised me first and foremost. I think this team actually could be competitive, but most people, based on where they're drafting the fantasy relevant players, they don't believe it's this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. That I think that, to be honest with you, the Jets are a little bit better than people give them credit for, but I also don't think that they're over that hump yet to where they're going to be a team that could potentially compete for a playoff spot. There's a lot of unknown with this offense as a whole, especially with quarterback Zach Wilson, because we saw he was banged up last year. And if I'm being honest with you, vintage Mike White was looking a little bit better than what we saw out of Zach Wilson last season. But at the end of the day, I really do think this Jets team is definitely better than people are giving them credit for. And the main player, like you said, Breece Hall, is probably one of the more polarizing players in fantasy football. I am more on the opposite side of the spectrum on Breece Hall. I am not as confident as you in him. I think he's a great player. I think he is going to next season really take over. But I think this year we may see him struggle a little bit. I'm getting more close to wanting to draft him. I've drafted him in a couple of best ball drafts already, so I'm not all the way out on Breece Hall. I'm just not as excited as it seems some analysts are who have him ranked all the way inside their top 10.
Well, just looking at the way the ADP is shaken out over the course of the offseason, he was sitting around pick 45, 46. His ADP is now around 60. Now, that's rising and rising. I've seen him go in the fifth, in the fourth. So I think his variance is pretty darn high here. And people are going to take their shots on Breece Hall. That's the bottom line. The stochastic projections, which are based on simulations, they currently agree with you. They think that Michael Carter is going to get enough opportunity where we can't really boost Breece Hall up the rankings that much. His RDP is well below his positional ADP on stochastic.com. I'm still going to take my shots. I'm one of the people trying to boost him up there. But let's talk about this receiving core a little bit. Elijah Moore, certainly talented enough to be a number one receiver in this league. They add a number one wideout with the 11th overall pick in Garrett Wilson. They've also got some tight ends who can play. CJ Uzoma comes over from the Cincinnati Bengals. I've heard that they really like Tyler Conklin, their second tight end. And you still got Corey Davis there. I think this is an average receiving core. Can we say it's above average yet with the way, from what we've seen with Moore and the rookie Wilson? Probably not. And then you got Zach Wilson, as you mentioned. This team was bottom 10 in Football Outsiders, DVOA, and past DVOA specifically. So they got a ways to go until they're an elite offense. I will say Garrett Wilson around pick 112, Elijah Moore pick 70. I'll take my shots, especially in best ball, and I don't mind stacking him up with Zach Wilson as my third quarterback.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. I really do like right now drafting the other wide receiver that we didn't mention. I was trying to pull up his ADP, but I can't find it right now. Braxton Berrios, wide receiver of the New York
He's like
Football
free.
Jets. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is a real gritty player, obviously. lunch pail type of guy. But yeah, I love Braxton Berrios a lot this season. I do think that Corey Davis is probably the number 3 receiver on the team, but you do get credit for those kick returns or those punt returns, whatever you want to call them. So Braxton Berrios is definitely a solid player here, and I think he has more upside than people give him credit for. And you are getting very unique with your roster if you do draft him, because he's a guy you have to like scroll a bunch to find him in the last round.
Yeah, ADP of 215.6. That's a really interesting one. He had a couple of breakout games. It was funny. He was like helped someone win $1 million because they had a 10 target game. And then he was like the chalk in DFS the next week. And he got like one target, but he hit because he scored on a rushing touchdown and he was like at min price. I digress. We're not a DFS show, but Barrios had his moment in the sun. So that's not a crazy pick at all. I like the tight ends as well. Tyler Conklin, a favorite late round, last round pick for me. I'm taking him over Uzoma. I just believe that they have Uzoma penciled in as the blocking inline tight end and Conklin as the receiving tight end. We'll see if that plays out. We move on to the New England Patriots, who overperformed last year, as many would say, but now people are just completely forgetting about them in fantasy football. They still have an 8.5 win total right now. Bill Belichick is basically taking over the offense and the defense, and reports out of training camp is that this offense looks much more modern without Josh McDaniels, some even alluding to the Los Angeles Rams as a modern offense prototype. I don't know if we're going to get there. The running backs are still the ones going first in ADP. 97th overall is the first New England Patriot in fantasy football ADP right now, and that's Damian Harris. Ramondre Stevenson and him are basically neck and neck. In some drafts, Stevenson now goes ahead of Harris, who got there mostly on touchdowns last year. You taking any of these Patriots running backs?
Yeah, it seems like all the reports out of camp have been super positive on Ramondre Stevenson, but I'm also reading that Damian Harris is also getting touches with the first team, so this is probably going to be one of those things where in your redraft league, if you draft either of these players, you're going to be so confused every single week what to do. You're going to never really know what to do because Bill Belichick is not going to telegraph it and tell you what he's going to do. So you're just going to be pissed. I mean, Belichick himself said yesterday that he hates fantasy football. You shouldn't be surprised about that. Right? Anyone who's played fantasy football for years knows Bill Belichick doesn't give a fuck about your fantasy football team. But I think in a best ball format, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are both players that I'd be looking to get some ownership of, because I think there are going to be multiple spike weeks this season where potentially they score 1 or 2 touchdowns in those games. But I do agree with you that I think without Josh McDaniels, this is going to be a team that looks to pass the ball a little bit more. And I think they would have anyways, because this is the second year of Mac Jones. I think they're kind of unhinging him a little bit, giving him a little bit more of a leash and letting him throw the ball a little.
Yeah. Unhinging him. I kind of like that. He's just about to go nuts.
Go crazy.
Unleashing, unhinging, go crazy. No, I actually, like, when I did my first rankings for best ball season this offseason, I basically left Mac Jones outside the top 30, saying, yes, I know he is a starting quarterback, but his chances for spike weeks in best ball are so low that they're pretty much non-existent. I'd rather take a rookie quarterback or a Mitch Trubisky in the last round and hope that they get a starting role that's more valuable than Mac Jones. I think that's not giving him enough credit. I think that's not giving this offense and these receivers enough credit. Hunter Henry's a quality player. Even Jonnu Smith, when he was working for the Tennessee Titans, is a quality player. They've got Devontae Parker, and I really actually like the duo of Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne, who are both quietly efficient without scoring touchdowns, which feels like an enigma, especially when you're talking about fantasy football. But the advanced metrics actually like all of these players. And Mac Jones, remember, overperformed for a rookie last year. So I kind of like this team. They're getting a lot of respect with 8.5 wins in the sports books, but no respect in fantasy football. There's probably some incongruency there. I got that word way better this time than I did on Monday in our live draft, where it took me about a year and a half to pronounce it. Last thing I'll say, Pierre Strong is I believe he was their 4th round pick, a running back. I don't know if we're going to see anything from him, but a player that also is free, sort of like a Braxton Berrios type, Tyquan Thornton. That name ring a bell to you? I believe it was a 2nd round pick this year, and he's going to be a return man or a special teams guy. But hey, 2nd round draft capital is not nothing, and he's got speed, and he's free in drafts. Just keep an eye out for that name as we get into the season here.
Yeah, I've taken a few shots on him. I just have struggle really believing that a rookie wide receiver is going to do something crazy in the Patriots offense, but maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe Tyquan Thornton is significantly better. We just know that at least he wasn't a first round pick because Bill Belichick stinks at making first round picks, especially at the wide receiver position. And I really do like Devontae Parker. We didn't really talk about him. A
Yeah.
lot of the buzz out of camp is positive towards him. I made a video on the Fantasy Football channel that recently came out that talks about Devontae Parker. I really think that he's the big-bodied wide receiver that this team has been looking for. That's what they wanted when they drafted N'Keal Harry, and then they ended up getting N'Keal Harry, but now they're going to get Devontae Parker, who's definitely a better player than N'Keal Harry ever was when he's healthy, and I think that Devontae Parker has the upside to score a decent amount of touchdowns this year, especially if they are throwing the ball a little bit more in the red zone, which that would basically need to happen if they are this new style offense that they're kind of alluding to.
Yeah, they just need to throw the ball more, period. I
Yeah.
think that's a fine play. I even think Kendrick Bourne. All these players are worth these free ADP that they
Yeah.
currently have, right? They're one or two of them in best ball are going to pay off for you and give you a decent advance rate. Are they going to be league winners? Probably not. But Hunter Henry had a large amount of touchdowns that could be distributed well differently this year. I think this is a very interesting team, especially when you consider how low they are all going in best ball drafts. There's probably a little bit of balancing that we need to do. So taking them slightly ahead of ADP makes sense. Before we go on to the two contenders in this division, well, you could say the Patriots are certainly a contender. They made the playoffs last year, but in your mind, I know, Nick, there's only two contenders. I want to talk to you guys today about our sponsor, Underdog. They've launched the Puppy 3 tournament, which is actually the fourth iteration of the Puppy tournament with $5 entry fees and huge prize pools up top. You want five-figure first place tournaments, the Puppy will get you there. There's also the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament, which rages on all summer long. $25 entry, 3 opportunities to win $1 million in that tournament. And when you use promo code Stochastic, you get $100 free dollars, up to $100 free dollars when you make your first deposit. They will match it with a first match deposit bonus. That's STOKASTIC, Stochastic. And here's the kicker. We will throw in the best ball rankings and best ball draft kit absolutely free, a $70 value. And I want to tell you a last thing. Let's say you already have Underdog, so you've already tuned out for this Underdog read because you've heard it before. Well, guess what? You want access to our best ball rankings and our draft kit for a week for $1? We'll give it to you right now. Promo code PUPPY3. That's the number 3. So PUPPY, the number 3 will get you access to our best ball rankings. They got cash rankings, tournament rankings, all platform rankings, $1 access, easy as that. So if you're new, promo code Stochastic, STOKASTIC. If you already have an Underdog account and you want our rankings, go over there, use to stochastic.com and use Puppy3 to get instant access for $1. All right, we move on to the last two teams in this division. The Miami Dolphins had a 9.0 win total earlier in the offseason. That's moved down to 8.5. I think that's a little bit more rational. Mike McDaniel, the new coach of this team, coming over from the San Francisco 49ers, and he brings over Frank Smith, the Chargers run game coordinator from last year as well. They are going to be a run first splash play offense, or so they hope. And that is why Tyreek Hill is going at 21.6 in ADP. That's held steady all summer long. And then Jalen Waddle, who's actually fallen basically the beginning of the 4th round in ADP. He was going towards the end of the 3rd. These receivers, people have a lot of high hopes for them. Talk about the opposite of the New England Patriots. But do you believe in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua Tagovailoa taking people far in best ball tournaments this year?
Yes, I do. I originally, a couple of months ago when I checked, I had 11.7% Miami Dolphins stacks on my teams, and it's probably significantly higher now. Obviously, you got to take that with, grain of salt a little bit, right? I am a
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins fan, so even while in fantasy football and best ball, I try to take my fandom out of it. At the end of the day, if I'm going to be paying the money to put this team in, I'm going to draft the guys that I like, right? So when I give the advice, I'm not going to tell you guys to go all in on the Dolphins, but personally, I am as a person because they're my favorite team. But Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa, we've already seen it in training camp that Tua doesn't just have a noodle arm. Everyone's saying, oh, he can't throw it past 20 yards. The guy threw like a 60-yard missile to Tyreek Hill, caught it right in the breadbasket. It was amazing. Obviously, that's not in a game. But the fact that people didn't think that he could do that, that just proves you're wrong if you thought that he couldn't do that. And all Tyreek Hill needs is a 6-yard slant, and he could take that thing 99 yards to the house. So you shouldn't have been worried at all. Jalen Waddle is in a really good position now because it's going to be very hard to slow down Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who are two of the faster players in the National Football League. And then you mix in guys like Raheem Mostert, who are also super fast. This team is going to look to be a very quick team this season. My favorite pick on this team right now is Raheem Mostert. If he is able to stay healthy at pick 186.9, that is basically a slap in the face to what Raheem Mostert can do with his speed. I do believe that Chase Edmonds is the starting running back. I have a decent amount of Chase Edmonds as well, but in terms of those big spike weeks, I think Raheem Mostert can give that to you, and Raheem Mostert is not necessarily free, but he's close to free at this point.
They're going to be so fast, man. They're going to be such a fast team. Speed kills in football. And I don't know if at these lofty ADPs that you're going to get consistent performances, but in best ball, what we're talking about today, you're going to get some spike weeks, man. I don't know what to tell you. Mike Gesicki's a different story for me. I'm not in on him. But even Hill, Waddle, Wilson, Raheem Mostert, this speed is going to work at some point.
Yeah.
Tua is actually the easiest bet for me because he's got so many good weapons around him at ADP, 135th overall. We're actually about a half a round ahead on the stochastic best ball rankings on Underdog specifically for best ball right now with Tua, because I think he succeeds in multiple different ways, whereas the wide receivers are one unique way of this offense succeeding. But there are just a lot of ways this whole thing works. I have high hopes for Mike McDaniels. Obviously, the new coach, optimism is there. There could be some growing pains, but this is a young, talented team that looks like they could be making some noise soon. Will it be 2022? We don't know. No one knows. But man, this looks like one of those teams you try to bet on before they become the next big thing.
Yeah, and when it comes to Mike Gesicki, like you said, Gesicki's actually been blocking a little bit more in training camp. There's a lot of talks about how if Gesicki can't block, he's not going to be on the field for the Dolphins. And if you've ever watched the Dolphins, Gesicki is not a blocking tight end, right? Gesicki is more one of those guys that goes out there and just catches passes, kind of like Evan Ingram. I mean, he's better than Evan Ingram, but you get what I'm saying, right? Not a guy that's going to be.
Well, he catches passes. He doesn't just run routes.
Yeah. He
Evan
actually
Ingram
knows how to catch the football. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. But yeah, Mike Gesicki, I've drafted him a couple of times. I understand why his ADP is falling, and I completely agree with you. I think Mike Gesicki is honestly really risky, especially in redraft, right? Because now you actually have to pick out when you want to be starting him, whereas in best ball you don't have to. But I think Gesicki will probably have a couple of good games, but to be honest with you, I don't think he really has any upside to be a top 5 tight end. So for that reason, I'm mostly out on him. And then I'm interested in Cedric Wilson a little bit as well, going at 212.9. But there's a lot of reports on, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. He's on the Dolphins. We call him Easy E as a Dolphins fan. Do you know what his name is? His name is
I call him Easy E as well. Yeah. Eric.
Let me find his name. Eric Escuma or something like that?
Yes.
I don't want to say his name wrong. I'm sorry.
Ezukanma. That's it.
Yes. That is him. Yes. So that guy is lighting it up in training camp based on everything that I've seen. Now, will a rookie that was not drafted super early be able to supplant Cedric Wilson, who the Dolphins gave a decent amount of money to? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're looking for that sneaky pick at the end of drafts that basically no one's going to have, right? You're going to have a huge ownership advantage if you advance to week 17 when the Dolphins play the Patriots and this Easy E fellow scores a touchdown, then you're going to be in a really good spot. But again, that's more of like one of those for the tournaments that are like 20 rounds you can draft them. The Dolphins also have Mohamed Sanu, but if I'm being honest with you, he's probably just there to like be the veteran guy in the locker room, right?
To cheer people on. Mo Sanu will play most likely. Remember when he got traded for a second round pick at the trading deadline? That was bizarre. And then he didn't get used. Mohamed Sanu, I mean, decent player, stuck around for a long time. Oh, the Dolphins are such a fascinating team. They could fall flat on their face, but the upside at least is there. So when we're talking about best ball and variance and trying to capture a new hot team in the NFL, this is one of those bets you got to take. But a sure thing, or at least being drafted like it. That's the Buffalo Bills and their top players in fantasy football. Their win total sits at 11.5, seen it at 11.0 some places. Sean McDermott back for yet another season, been there since 2017. Their new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey of Miami football fame. He was the pass game coordinator up until last year, and they got Leslie Frazier, who came over with Sean McDermott. They lost Brian Dable to the New York Giants, but they didn't lose any firepower on the outside. Stephon Diggs still a surefire first-round pick. His ADP has actually risen from 9.0 earlier in the offseason to about 7.5 now. Josh Allen has held steady right at the beginning of round 3 as a typical ADP, and often you actually see him go higher than that with people trying to stack him up with Stephon Diggs. And then the big story, Gabriel Davis moving way up the draft boards as one of the most exciting breakout candidates in 2022 after his monster game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. Do you have any favorites of these early round Buffalo Bills, or is there a specific way you're playing this team in best ball?
Yeah, I have a lot of Buffalo Bills stacks. I haven't been able to get a lot of Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, and Gabe Davis based upon where I've been picking. Every single draft, I'm either the number 1 pick or like the number 5 pick, and there's no in between in every single draft. And it means I have a lot of Jonathan Taylor, but it also means I don't have a lot of Stephon Diggs, because if I'm at like the 6th overall pick, I'm not going to reach and select Stephon Diggs over receivers that I feel as though are going to score more points. But I do like Stephon Diggs a ton. I understand why his ADP is moving more positively, because basically every player on the Bills has been moving up in ADP besides Josh Allen, who's fallen like 2 or 3 picks, but he's basically going the exact same range. The only issue with this is that if Josh Allen isn't the quarterback 1, you are eating so much ADP drafting him like a round or 2 ahead of these other quarterbacks, then at the end of the season, your team may not look as good as it possibly could have if you waited and went with the Chiefs stack or the Chargers stack. But hey, that's the price you got to pay when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, who is as good as he is and has as big of an arm as Josh Allen, with also some crazy rushing upside. So he's basically like the perfect quarterback for fantasy football. So I like all of them at ADP. I'm buying into Gabe Davis. He is either going to be, he's not going to be like a middling pick, right? This guy is either going to dominate, be the reason why you took down a crazy amount of money, or be the reason why your team was a unmitigated disaster, a dumpster fire, and doesn't even make the playoffs, doesn't even advance. So I think Gabe Davis is a good pick, and it's just so interesting because every single time I do a fantasy football draft, this guy goes like pick 85, whereas on best ball, you have to pay 40 or 50 spots higher for him. But I understand it, right? It's because of the stack.
The stack and the fact that when he does hit, he hits big. Just looking at games of double-digit fantasy points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games after week 13 last year that he had double-digit fantasy points, hit over 20 points twice, and obviously 52 fantasy points if you were playing DFS in that divisional round, just showing you what he can do within that offense. Honestly, if you're looking for consistency, though, 15 points, what are we doing not drafting Devin Singletary inside the top 100 players? I know that we've been all over this most of the offseason. I also know that the team spent second-round draft capital on Dalvin Cook's little brother, James. I still think Devin Singletary is going to smash this year, especially about what he did against weak run defenses at the end of last year. Yes, they know what they have in this pass offense, but when they've got a game locked up, they have no problem giving it to a bell cow running back. That's exactly what they did in week 17 against Atlanta, week 18 against the Jets. He had over 23 fantasy points in both games. Devin Singletary, man, at ADP every single time for me.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I have so much Devin Singletary. There's a lot of James Cook hype, though. So maybe I have to start adjusting, drafting a little bit more James Cook. But if I'm being honest with you, I really do think Devin Singletary is going to, like, James Cook doesn't profile as the guy that when they're knocking on the door, they're going to just run it with James Cook, right? If they're on the goal line, they're giving it to Devin Singletary. Now, there is still this one player on the team that is watching from a distance, but might sneak up and absolutely stab these guys in the back, and that's Zach Moss. I don't think Zach Moss is very good, but they keep talking about Zach Moss. They keep saying, oh, Zach Moss is going to get the ball. That worries me a little bit, but I'm still all in on the Devin Singletary bandwagon. And he's been getting drafted significantly higher than his ADP in a lot of the drafts. Like he's picked 102.6 right now. I've seen him go as high as pick like 90, 87 in some drafts. So people are starting to catch on with us here.
Stochastic Best Ball Mania 3 rankings, which are different than the Stochastic Underdog Cash rankings, right? We're looking for upside, league winning upside. Devin Singletary ranked number 58 on that list. Let me ask you a question here. Week 1, what do you think our projections have? More points for Devin Singletary or A.J. Dillon?
Oh, I'd say Devin Singletary.
Me too. Projected points, week 1. Devin Singletary or Travis Etienne?
Probably Etienne.
I think it's close. If James Robinson is active week 1, Devin Singletary or Antonio Gibson?
Oh, Devin Singletary. Antonio Gibson is...
Devin Singletary or Josh Jacobs?
I would say Jacobs.
I think it's Devin Singletary. To the point where it's absolutely an argument you could make either side, right?
Yeah, no, it's not 100% Josh Jacobs. It's just I think that Josh Jacobs is the number 1 on that Raiders team. Some people don't see him as... I mean, he did play in the preseason game last night, which is a little bit confusing.
Concerning, I would use. It was a fun game to play. I think Devin Singletary is just straight up underrated. James Cook is a fine pick in best ball. Absolutely. Don't take both of them. But a second round pick on the Bills could work. I actually like their late round receiving options, which you can include Dawson Knox. He's outside the top 100 players now as well at pick 105. Isaiah McKenzie creeping up draft boards as well. I still really like Jamison Crowder. He's down from 137.5 earlier in the offseason to 164.5. And their 5th round pick, receiver Khalil Shakir. We don't know what we're going to get out of him, but we're just betting on the Bills offense. Any favorites here for the Bills in the barely fantasy relevant land? I'll throw in one more name for you. O.J. Howard, formerly of the Buccaneers. I think he's a fine late round pick.
Yeah, I like O.J. Howard as well. I'm starting to buy the dip on Jamison Crowder. Seems like people are really hyping up Isaiah McKenzie, but when McKenzie's getting this hype, Jamison Crowder wasn't playing, like he wasn't healthy, like he was not out there. So I think Jamison Crowder is actually in a decent spot to be the number 3 receiver. Is he going to be the number 3 receiver on this team every single game? Probably not. We're going to see Isaiah McKenzie, but I think honestly just drafting both of them at ADP on different teams is probably the way to go, because if this Bills offense is as good as we project, there's going to be spike games, I would assume, for both of them.
Yep. Gosh, if there aren't spike weeks all over the place for all of these players, we're going to be very, very upset. Bottom line is, I'm not fading these players at ADP. Gabriel Davis is the most annoying player in best ball fantasy football because I like Gabriel Davis, but not 4th round like Gabriel Davis. I have a lot of players who I believe can be league winners before him. People getting week 17 correlations with the Cincinnati Bengals players also going early. I understand it, everyone. I understand it, Sharps. But I think it's going to bite us eventually. I'm still having trouble with Dawson Knox, but ultimately this Bills offense with an 11.5 win total should be in a ton of advantageous positions so long as their quarterback stays healthy and steady. That has been the AFC East preview. 4 teams up, 4 teams down, a really exciting division, and the Dolphins. He's Nick. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. He's got a basketball behind him today. I didn't want to say anything until the very end, but that's just who he is today. My name's Matt Savoca. Follow me at Draftaholic. Make sure you get over to Underdog. If you are already a subscriber, head over to stokastic.com/best-ball and sign up using promo code PUPPY3. That'll get you $1 access to our rankings and projections. And if you're brand new to Underdog, you guys got to take advantage. See the banner at the bottom of your screen there. Promo code STOKASTIC, STOKASTIC, gets you up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. Free money is always good. He's Nick. I'm Matt. We'll be back soon for more best ball division previews. We'll see you guys later.